Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ari, and today we're going to have some more stories about our toxic life. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to my channel, like the video, if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now without further ado, let's go. Today's first story. In this story, Opie recounts a tumultuous relationship since 2015, marked by disagreements, a dwindling intimate life, and, notably, infidelity. Despite attempts at couples therapy, trust shattered with the discovery of additional betrayals, leading to a painful breakup. He grapples with the aftermath, expressing concerns about personal struggles and uncertainties. Seeking support and advice for the challenging post-breakup period, the writer reflects on the need for encouragement and reassurance that things will improve. Now let's get into the story. I am writing this as a bit of a journaling exercise and maybe for some support from people who have been through the same. Thanks for being so welcoming. We have been together since 2015 and early on I planned for this to be a lifelong relationship. It was rocky along the way, and this is part of the reason I never managed to propose. However, there is still a very mature ring fund which will go somewhere else now, I'm sure. Around 2019, I began to think that maybe our relationship was not going to be like how I had imagined it. We fought a lot. Nothing physical, of course, just disagreements and mutual pouting and discontent. Our intimate life dropped off significantly after 2016 for medical reasons, and it never really seemed to recover. In June of last year, we had a D&M where she said in as many words that I did not satisfy her. I had never satisfied her, and the thought of me in bed made her sick. It was very upsetting at the time, and in hindsight, I shouldn't have called our relationship then. But we decided initially that we would try to work our way through our problems, and we also ended up having a 4-month-long lockdown shortly afterward, so I didn't want to throw her onto the street or anything. Around September, I discovered she had been sexting some guy overseas, a total breach of trust, but I decided I would bracket it because there was nothing physical, and even though we never discussed it openly, I thought she knew that I knew. I never broached this directly, but we eventually decided we would go to couples therapy. I discovered yesterday that she slept with another man in November last year while she was out of town on a short holiday. Some random she met online, and I presume she had been chatting with for a few weeks at least. I didn't care to ask for the exact date, but it was either shortly before or shortly after our first couples therapy session. When she went to work today, I left a note on the table saying goodbye, packed a bag, and went to my parents' place for a few days. This evening, after she came home, we had an hour-long SMS-only discussion. I don't want to talk about it aloud. I can't put my words together in time to speak them, where she took responsibility for everything, promised to change, and asked if I would come back. I appreciated her honesty. I believe everything she has said. This was completely unlike her, something she acknowledged, and she is afflicted by both mental illness and gruesome intimate trauma as a child and young adult. But I said that this was a hard barrier for me, and I would not consider coming back even if we continued to seek couples therapy for this issue. I said I would consider going back to our therapist to work through the breakup process, as we had discussed this previously in one of our sessions, and I can see how it could be helpful. It is also something our therapist has worked on. Even if we could make our way past this, and she found a way to fix herself, it would always be a part of our past and something I will never be able to reconcile myself with. While we were in a relationship, I don't fully believe that there has only been one other man. I asked how many other people she has had intimate with during our relationship, and she said one. But I think this might have been a very strict definition of intimate, and that she has been emotionally and physical cheating with several other men over at least the past 6 months, and even up until now. She said that this was a part of her life that felt like it was without consequence. And although that is obviously wrong, I can understand what she was saying. Anyway, the number doesn't matter. One is one too many. I feel very dirty for how I found this all out, especially since I was going by a gut feeling, but I feel partially vindicated by my gut being right. I don't know if I can shake this feeling of shame for having been able to discover this, even though it is for the best that I know and that we separate. I will likely be moving my appointment with my own therapist forward a few weeks to help with where I go from here. I don't quite know how she moved on from this, but I am trying my best to focus on myself. I don't know what I will do with myself yet because so much of who I am, what I do, and what I'm like revolved around what we were. I picked up my guitar for the first time in a few months and couldn't do much with it. I don't play as much now because I felt embarrassed playing around her. Not her fault. She was always very encouraging of all my creative pursuits. I have a few friends, but I am both a very reserved person and also someone who gets lonely easily. I might need to house share because I don't know if living alone is a good idea for me right now. I did say that I hope we can be friends one day, and I really do, but besides the infidelity and our other problems, she's great, and we did gel in a very cool way. But in my heart of hearts, it doesn't seem likely. At the very least, as soon as either one of us starts seeing someone else, unless they're super chill, I don't think it's going to work. I've decided that I'm not going to be super candid with other people about the circumstances of our breakup. There's no need to be, but it's something that I would mention to a few future partner. And I can imagine for them that it would be a bit weird for your partner to be friends with their ex who is also a cheater. I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. She will likely move to another city, and we won't have much opportunity to see each other again. Anyway, that's my story. There were times this morning when I thought I might try to just let it slide and forget about it. But I'm glad the part of me which stood fast won over, because there was really no future. Knowing this, it would always eat at me. I don't know what the future holds, and I am truly scared because I have had struggles with alcohol and smoking in the past, which my partner really helped me to temper. I stopped smoking as a condition of getting together, which I'm grateful for, maybe with a sneaky cigarette every now and then at the pub. And I don't have that anymore. I have made a short list of things for me to try to do with myself for the next 4 weeks and have committed to not buying any spirits at all for now, and only smoking if I've gone out and someone offers. I don't go out often, so this is generally sustainable for me. If there is anything any of you have done to get past the first few weeks and months of your breakup due to infidelity, I would certainly appreciate any advice if you have made it this far. Today's second story. In this story, Opie, after unexpectedly returning from a business trip, discovers his wife and brother-in-law engaging in inappropriate behavior, leading to the shocking revelation of an incestuous relationship. Devastated, he hires a private investigator to expose their affair. Upon receiving incriminating photos, he orchestrates a dramatic revelation, publicly displaying the evidence to their families. The confrontation leads to chaos, physical altercations, and the revelation that the brother and sister fled to avoid consequences. He's seeking closure, initiates divorce proceedings, and moves forward, still grappling with the surreal nature of the situation. Now let's get into the story. My wife, 35, and I, 33, have been married for 2 years. I was scheduled to go on a 2-day-long business trip, leaving extremely early one day and returning the next day in the evening. Well, after 5 hours of driving, the trip was canceled. I wasn't terribly bothered because I was used to driving and would be compensated for my time. Decided to return home unexpectedly. When I arrived, I was surprised to see another car parked beside my wife's. It was her brother's car. He was a buff dude married with a baby that my wife would often babysit. She loved it because she looked forward to becoming a mother. Her and her brother were really close and enjoyed hiking. It didn't matter what the weather was like all year round. They would go on long hiking expeditions together. I didn't mind. It was their thing, and I was not an outdoorsy person. I'd usually work a little more or dedicate time to my hobby of building miniature boats. Although I fully supported their relationship, I became a little weary of my wife's brother when he became exceptionally emotional at our wedding and planted a huge kiss on his sister's lips. I couldn't do anything about it. It happened so fast. He asked me to forgive him later, blaming what he did on the high emotions he felt seeing his sister get married and leave the family. When I arrived home and parked behind my wife's car, I could hear slow music playing loudly. It was an odd setting to imagine my wife and brother-in-law in. I didn't have to imagine it because I walked in on them slow dancing together. He was holding her close to his body. Their embrace was that of a romantic couple's. When they noticed my presence, they broke apart quickly and looked really guilty. I knew my marriage was in jeopardy by their expressions. My wife tried to say her brother needed emotional support because his marriage was struggling. To me, that did not explain why they were slow dancing in my living room. As hard as it was, I didn't ask them any more questions. They were aware of how odd it looked. I didn't have to wait long before my wife went to go babysit her baby niece. One day, she accidentally left her phone behind and I found her. WhatsApp revealed that she was sexting her brother, sending pictures, saying I love you, and arranging hookups with him by claiming she was going to babysit. It was the most disgusting and disturbing discovery I ever made in my life. I threw her phone and ran to the bathroom to be sick. Everyone always assumed they were really close because they had trouble making friends when they were younger and shared an enthusiasm for hiking that no one else in the family did. I wouldn't confront her about it immediately because it certainly wouldn't have stopped them. I realized that I was just the COVID husband so she could have a secret intimate relationship with her blood brother. I went back to her phone as I boiled with anger and betrayal and took screenshots to send to myself. I planned out my revenge, which involved a bit of acting on my part. It was excruciating to see her behave so normally when she returned home. Like she didn't just hook up with her brother behind my back. I too acted as though everything was normal. I laid awake beside her that night in our marital bed. The very next morning, I hired a pie to get me photos of them. When I announced the truth, she wouldn't be able to wiggle out of the consequences. Not long after, she claimed she was going on a hiking trip with her brother, and I played along, notifying the pie. He called me late that night and notified me that she got a hotel room with her brother along the beach a few hours away. I started packing my things because it was only a matter of time before I got pictures. I didn't know why they weren't actually hiking together this time, but I didn't care either. At this point, I didn't care about anything and just felt numb. I received pictures of them, walking on the beach and boardwalk like newlyweds, his hand on her butt, full kisses on the lips staring into each other's eyes over drinks at the bar, both of them entering a hotel room, clearly in a romantic relationship. I was ready to leave, but before I left, I invited her immediate and extended family and friends over, including her brothers, wife, and baby. I printed large copies of the pictures I received and hung them all over the house, starting at the front door. On my way out, I left a note on the door instructing them to let themselves in. Little did they know I left town for my friend's house with all my belongings and no plans to return. They called me after they entered home, frantically asking me what those pictures were. I spelled it out for them on speakerphone. These two members of the family were incestuous freaks that have probably been in an intimate relationship since they lived with their parents. Then I told them where they currently were if they didn't believe me and wanted to see for themselves. Hours later, I got a call from my soon-to-be ex-wife. She was screaming and I could hear the chaos in the background. It became clear that her entire family and a few of her friends had shown up at their hotel. Her brother was being beaten by cousins, and the hotel called the police. She asked why I did this to her, and I told her she deserved it. She had been living a lie, that she wouldn't be able to continue anymore. I told her the divorce papers were on the table and she started wailing, so I hung up. I was hurt enough as it was and didn't want to dwell on how her life would turn out. Her mom called me a few days later to apologize on behalf of her daughter and son. She updated me and said the police never arrived at the hotel, so hotel staff started breaking up the fight themselves. In the chaos, the brother and sister fled to escape scrutiny. The whole family was a wreck for a few days, but things are settling amongst them now. The wife of the brother is filing for divorce as well, along with custody and child support before they fled. Neither of them signed divorce papers, so that's a waiting game for now. I'm relieved this was all exposed when it was because I can't imagine continuing that relationship any longer without knowing the truth. I just want to put this all behind me and I feel like I'm on the right track. I found a nice place and continue working for the same company I was in. I'm continuing to take this one step at a time. This whole thing is still so surreal for me.